Welcome back. I want to do a quick introduction before I get into the video just to say this is a long discussion about the quality of the aluminum oil filter caps for the BMW N52, N54, and similar variant engines, and whether it's something you should consider or not. So please join in the discussion. I'd love to hear what your experiences and opinions are, so let's get into the discussion. Welcome back, everyone. This is not a video I really wanted to make, and this is my third attempt to make it. And it's about the aluminum oil filter caps that are available online for the N52, N54, and other variant engines that use the same part. I believe the N42, the four-cylinder version, uses it. Again, check your part numbers. It's all the engines that use this style of oil filter cap. And yes, you saw the title correctly. I am advocating not to use these, and I'll say from my current research and my current understanding, I would advise you to not use any of them. Over the past few days, and since I've received this part, I have done a bit more research that I wish I would have done prior to purchasing it. And this part here is only about $20 to $30, so it's not a huge investment, but a waste of money is still a waste of money. And I'll get into why this is bad in just a minute, but first I want to go over the options that are available. There is the OEM BMW plastic one, which is available for about $40. There is the Burger Motorsports billet oil filter cap, which is about $65. There's the Be Cool one from CTS for $70, and then there's the ECS tuning one for $80. These are the most common ones that I've seen. There might be others on the market that I'm not aware of or not listing here, but for the sake of this explanation, these are the most common ones that you're going to come across. So I think these are the ones that are most relevant to talk about. So next I want to go into some research I've done across different people on the YouTube platform that have done videos on this. And I will be naming names, but nothing I say here is any slight against these people. I'm not calling them out for anything. I'm using their videos as other references that other people have had or other experiences that other people have with these products. The first one, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I do apologize. It's Matria. I'm just going to call him Matt for short. His video is for the most part, the only one that I can find that is against these. And the oil filter cap that he chose was the CTS, by the Be Cool CTS, and he also had the K&P stainless steel oil filter combo. And his issue was that he was finding more and more metal flakes in his filter every single time he would do an oil change. And if I remember correctly, he did 3 oil changes on his combination of the CTS and K&P oil filter and oil filter cap. Next is Vehicular DIY. His video was in favor of the oil caps, and he had this exact one, the Euro parts, which is the most similar. This is almost an identical copy to the plastic one, except for it was die cast in aluminum. And he didn't indicate there were any issues with the part. Again, I don't know what his corporate sponsorship is like, if he has any, or if he, if he had a better unit than I got. I'm not sure, but from what I've seen from other places, this is not a quality unit. Next would be BMW Fanatic. He was another one who is in favor of these components, and he had the Burger Motorsports, and he didn't indicate any issues. He also had a video that I think was made prior to the video he made about that specific oil filter cap, which was talking about the issue of the plastic ones cracking and splitting. And he did have one photo. I don't know if it was his own photo from his own vehicle or if it was just one he pulled from the internet, but there was one photo that he showed of a plastic one that was cracked open and had spat oil everywhere, and that was on an M54 engine. To the best of from the best that I could tell from the photo, it was an M54. And that's a clue, I think. And then the last YouTuber that I will mention is the Wrench Lab. He, again, was a proponent of these parts. He was using the ECS tuning oil filter cap, and he didn't encounter any problems or didn't explain any problems that he had had with the part other than the cage. He was having issues with the cage broke and came undone, and he had to try and find a new one to shove into the ECS tuning cap. And he ended up ordering an OEM plastic one from BMW, as well as a Euro Parts plastic one. And I think he said he paid about $15 for the Euro Parts plastic one versus $40 or $50 for the BMW one. So next I want to go into a fantastic forum thread about the problems that people are having with these. I'd say most people on the forums claim to be having good results with these. That could just be a bias of they bought it and they want to make sure it feels good because they spent a lot of money on it. Or maybe they aren't aware of the issues they're having, or maybe they're not having any issues. It's, it's a complex subject. So the forum post title is called Best N54 Billet Oil Filter Housing Cap. And it's from the forum of Spool Street. So it's a turbo-oriented forum by the sounds of it. And again, I think this is a clue to why this might seem like an issue, and it may or may not be. So there people shared some fitment issues. The two that I'm going to bring up are one user by the name of Slow E39. He must own a 525i like I do, because that thing is not fast. And then the guy's name that I can't pronounce that I'm going to call Matt, he shows up here as well on this forum to kind of repeat the same things he did in his video. Kind of sharing his frustrations with the part that he got. And Slow E39, a couple other users, and Matt all shared their problems and issues. And Matt's biggest concern are these three protrusions, these three standoffs that stick out above the cap. The plastic one has it, the Euro Parts cap has it, but all of the other billet ones do not have that. They just have some machined in clips that will hold the cage in place, and then that's it. There's nothing to prevent the centerpiece from popping out. The only thing that prevents it from popping out, like on this metal one, are some retaining clips. And that's really where the issue comes up here. And I really don't think there's an issue with the plastic one, the OEM. Yes, it is plastic, but my E39 has a plastic one, and it's well over 200,000 miles, and it's nearly 20 years old. And that plastic oil filter cap shows no signs of degradation. Yes, I'm sure it's more brittle than it was when it was new, but as long as you don't over torque it, which I think is part of the issue, is people over torquing these, as well as the N54 owners who probably are tuning these cars and putting a lot more heat and stress into the engine than was engineered into the original cap. Those people are probably going to be encountering some problems as well. Or if people are putting in the wrong oil filter, or if they are not changing their oil filter regularly, there could be excess pressure in here. And if the relief valve in the top here, because this valve, it's under some spring tension, spring pressure, and it will open up if the oil filter around this cage clogs up or has too much resistance. It's a bypass valve. But now keep in mind, this bypasses the filter. So anything that goes through here, anything that leaks around these edges, because you can see that is far from a tight or perfect fit in there, that is all unfiltered oil that is going to be going directly into the moving components of the engine. That is very, very bad. And so what you're doing if you're buying one of these things is adding an unreliable component, or I should say replacing a reliable component with a less reliable component. So you're making a problem for yourself. And that's not even to mention the quality issues I had with this. I spent well over an hour with needle files, sandpaper, and some sanding sponge to try and clean up these threads so they didn't look like razors. I will show you some B-roll right now of the casting flash on this component and some of the really bad machining on this component. And what I didn't understand at the time is that this part is not supposed to move. It clamps down inside and it locks in place. The only thing that's supposed to move is this on the spring. So it goes on the spring like that. It goes over that, little, actually it looks like a Lego axle is what that does. And then this moves up and down. Well, the problem was with mine originally is that the spring did not seat all the way to the bottom. It was because the casting was too small in that area, so it was bound up about right here and it wouldn't go any lower. So I had to use my files and file out the grooves in there to make it seat properly. The other thing is that this piece, the bore in there, does not fit very well on that cast surface, and with a little bit of sandpaper I was able to smooth it up so it slides a little bit better now, but it is still a terrible fit. And the other problem is that once this comes down a little bit, enough to open up this hole, there is nothing from stopping it from moving to the side and then never closing again. It will just open up and kind of move off, and then you're going to be a constant partial bypass. Sorry if that's out of frame and out of focus. Not only that, but this part does, as I said before, does not seal well at all on the inside bore here, where the OEM one has a larger diameter for the bypass. It has a slightly softer spring, so it will be more likely to bypass the oil, and that really is not the issue. The issue is not that this won't bypass enough oil, because the people that are going to be replacing these are people who probably do their oil changes regularly enough and use quality oil filters so that they don't run into a regime where they need to use the high flow level of the bypass. The problem is that this doesn't seal around here, so you're going to have a lot of just inherent bypass. And you think that that gap is going to filter out anything compared to what your oil filter does? No, it won't. So you're going to end up with a lot more metal flakes and chips just from this alone. That doesn't, that's not talking about the other issues that people are having. So another fitment problem with specifically the Euro one is that when you get it locked down into these clips, which is not easy to do. All right, so there it's locked in. Some people are concerned that this shouldn't move around. To my understanding, it should move around because that allows it to self-center once it goes into the housing. Otherwise, if this is rigid and it's off-center, and this tries to go down into the hole that it's supposed to go into, it may not line up correctly, and it'll be put under some stress. So having it be floating is a good thing. The problem is that it doesn't seat down far enough. The OEM, and I'll throw up a couple pictures here again from the Spool Street user Slow E39. You can see here that you can see where that levels off, or where, how far this sticks out from here to here. Okay. This is supposed to be roughly here. Probably, let's use millimeters, probably 6 millimeters, 1/4 inch. This is supposed to sit down. And the problem is these little clips in here. All right, you can see it right there. I'll use my pen to show you. Because of how far these right here stick up, that interferes with this feature here, and it doesn't allow it to seat down far enough. So what the user Slow E39 did is he ground those away so there was just enough to keep the clip, like the retaining clip feature in there, so it would hold in the cage. But because he was having issues with this and he didn't trust the bypass valve, he ran with the stock cage on the Euro aluminum cap. And that's probably one of the best combinations here, because this cap still has these 3 pins, which will prevent this from popping too far out and blocking oil flow or blocking bits from falling into your engine. So, you know, maybe I'll do a quick sketch here and show you what I'm talking about. All right, please excuse my kindergarten level drawing skills, but this is a cross-section view of what we're looking at when this is all assembled and the cage is about to seat on the clips. These 2 pieces here represent these 3 pins. These 2 angled pieces on the outside represent the clips that are in here that will clip around the inside of these pockets here, and they clip in this way. They do not clip outwards. And then this shape here represents this, I don't know, plug, cap. It's a junky part. And then here we have the plug for the valve and the spring. So I guess we could call that the valve seat. Use whatever words you feel like using. This very strong spring here is pushing against the valve seat, and it always wants to push it out. Thankfully, this is secured in tightly enough that that won't be likely to happen in this unit. But this has another problem where it just doesn't seal around the inside of this like the plastic one does. If these aren't here, and keep in mind these clips are wider than the valve seat, so if those 3 pins aren't there, this will go all the way against the wall. Again, this piece here, it will move down in between and plug that off. I don't have the best understanding of how the OEM works, because I'm not going to go to my storage facility to grab my Z4 or to grab the cap out of my Z4 and disassemble it when it's a perfectly good working part, and I don't feel like buying a cheap one just to take it apart for the video. No offense to you people. But from what I've seen from everyone else who's taken one apart online, from the users I've mentioned and some that I haven't, there are 2 possibilities of where this is going to go. Either it's set up, the plastic one is set up similar to this, where if it falls all the way down, it's just going to be under extreme bypass. So it would sit. All right, I struggled with that for a little bit, and I even snapped one of these tabs off by accident. Oh well, I don't care, because I don't plan on using this anymore anyway. At least not with this cage, that's for sure. But if that valve seat falls all the way down because those pins aren't there, it's going to open up like this, and then I would venture to guess that the resistance to flow through here will be much less than the resistance to flow through the filter. So a lot of the oil is going to want to go into there. That's not even to mention that at that length, this valve seat may disengage, or sorry, the valve may disengage with the seat there, and now you got this thing floating around inside. Thankfully, it's too big to fall through, so it's not going to go into the engine. And downstream from this, the orifices for the oil would probably be too small, but it's going to block something, that's for sure. The spring also, it's too small to go down in there, but you know, this is just cheap stamped steel that is work hardened to the point that just bending these a little bit breaks them. So what if that falls through? As you can see, there are many problems with this design here that the plastic one does not have. And I've said this a few times on this channel that plastic is an awesome, awesome material to use if it's used correctly and it's engineered for the job that it is trying to achieve. In case of the oil filter cap and the cage, I think the plastic one is the way to go. Would it be better if it was engineered from the beginning in metal? Yes. But, just until the market has something better, do not buy any of these. One of the last things I want to mention is from that Spool Street forum. At the top of each page, you'll see a poll. on the forum for which one people would get, and the stock one at 44.7% way outdid every other aluminum oil cap. And this will go into my final point, which is to say, again, that this is a solution searching for a problem. On the entire internet, I have only been able to find 2 images of a cracked oil cap. Now, I know 2 images on the internet only counts for 2 of maybe 100 failures, maybe 1,000 failures. But I can't imagine that this is that common of an issue. Yeah, I'm just kind of lost for words here. If I were to, and this is not a recommendation for you, I'm just saying what I think. If I had to go with an aluminum one, the combination that I would go with would be the Burger Motorsports cap with the stock cage and bypass valve mechanism. But I would add a part. I would add a spring, not dissimilar to this, much weaker, of course, but I'd have it be roughly the diameter that would sit, inside here and not escape the cage retainer clips that they've machined in the bottom. And having that spring there would take the place of these 3 pins, and it would push against this to counteract the spring, but it would also prevent this, the valve seat from popping too far out. And it wouldn't block flow either because, well, springs don't really block that much flow. That's how I would do it if I had to have an aluminum one. But at the cost of the aluminum ones, why not just buy another OEM BMW plastic one, which, again, are proven to work and work well? The only reason why I could see going to an aluminum one being an advantage is, again, if you're an N54 owner and you tune every last drop of performance out of your engine. Unless you're one of those people and you aren't just tuning every last drop of performance, but you're using every last drop of performance out of the engine, I don't see how this makes any sense. I would say, yes, I do regret. I don't like saying it I don't like admitting defeat or fault if I can avoid it, but I know when I've made a mistake, and this was a mistake. So if you have different experiences, or if you want to add to the discussion, I very much would appreciate that and encourage that down in the comments. I'll try and read everything, and we'll see if this is a common consensus or if I'm way out in left field about this. But again, don't buy these. Don't buy any of them. Stick with OEM and make common sense decisions with this stuff, because if you don't, parts like this and fitments and the quality of parts like this could really come back to hurt you. So with that, I think I'm going to end it here. I've said what I have to say. I've rambled on long enough. Well, until next time, see ya.